Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. The leaves are falling, there is a crisp to the air, and that means one thing in the state of Indiana. It's time to fill the gyms for another winter full of basketball. Today, it is time to preview the 2022-2023 season of Purdue basketball. It's a brand new team with a whole lot to discuss as we look ahead to what's to come this season. We will do our best to check every box as we preview the upcoming season of Boilermaker basketball here on the podcast today. Certainly one of the more fun episodes that we do each year. There's an exhibition game coming up on Wednesday against Truman State in Mackey Arena. Purdue just took down Cincinnati in the somewhat secret scrimmage on Saturday. So what better time to jump right in than now? A lot to talk about. Going to be a fun year. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. We will be tweeting during pretty much every game, everything there is to talk about related to Purdue basketball, and plenty of Big Ten, national college basketball news on there. You won't want to miss it. And be sure to subscribe right here at Boilers Beyond. Wherever you get your podcasts, we are here. Going to be here all season long, breaking down whatever happens on the hardwood with this Purdue team. And as we look ahead to this season, it's quite an interesting spot for Purdue because last season, on paper, was so good. I can't remember Purdue's final record, but it was pretty good. Purdue had a good year by all accounts, except for when you consider what happened as it relates to the expectations. Purdue started the season off so well. They got to number one in the country. They finished 29-8, so pretty good. I mean, all in all, you win 29 games, that's pretty good. But look, I said this all year on the podcast last year. This team, I guess now it is that team, was too good to not have something to remember it in the rafters of Mackey Arena. And they didn't win the Big Ten regular season championship. They didn't win the Big Ten tournament championship, losing to Iowa. And they lost in the Sweet 16, falling short of the Final Four. So there's nothing in the rafters to remember it. Yes, number 23 will be up there for Jaden Ivey, but there will be nothing remembering that team, and that's a shame. That is a bummer. But now, it's funny because we're at a point where, preseason expectations are so different, but I've heard from so many Purdue fans that they think they're going to enjoy this season so much more than last. And you know what? I think that's fair. I think a lot of people will. The expectations weigh heavily, and I will never forget what Boiler in Texas, who listens and tweets to the show quite a bit, said at the end of last year, where he said every win felt like a relief, and every loss ruined your whole week. I couldn't have said it better myself. That was how it felt for Purdue fans. This year, there will be none of that. Wins are going to be worth celebrating. Losses are probably to be expected from time to time. But I think when you look at this season, there's plenty to be optimistic about. Now, a time that was not very optimistic for Purdue happened back in the late spring when the transfer portal went crazy. Of course, it's been well documented. Purdue was after guards in the transfer portal, and it took a little while to get there. Obviously, Purdue was in a very good spot with Nigel Pack before John Ruiz from Miami came in with an offer that he couldn't turn down. Tyrese Hunter chose Texas over Purdue, the Iowa State transfer. Jameer Young, he was from Charlotte, ended up at Maryland. But David Jenkins Jr., a transfer from Utah, formerly of South Dakota State and UNLV, he came aboard. So Purdue did get a much-needed backcourt piece there. But boy, the springtime was not a fun place on Purdue Twitter. Just not enjoyable. A lot of people not very happy. But now, there seems to be quite a bit of optimism coming into this season, and it all centers around the front court. Ironically enough, it centers around the center. Zach Edey's going to be the main piece of this team. You look at what he did last year, he took a really nice step forward from his freshman to sophomore season. Turned in 14 points and 7 boards a game last year, and he did that on just 19 minutes per game. Of course, now the interesting thing to watch is going to be, what does he do with more minutes? Of course, you can look at things through the lens of a per 40 minutes statistical analysis. You can always get the numbers per 40 minutes. And from last season, the numbers per 40 indicated that Zach Edey was probably the most dominant player in college basketball, but that's not always reality because of what happens to your body the more you play. And that is what is going to be key. How many more minutes does Purdue get out of Zach Edey this year? There are going to be games where he's in foul trouble, but on a normal game where he is not in foul trouble and is just playing basketball, what are we looking at here? Are we looking at someone playing 22 minutes a game? Maybe 25? Are we going more than that? Are we going 27, 28? That's what's going to be interesting to see, is how much more can Purdue get out of Zach Edey from a minutes perspective, and how efficient and how productive can he be in those expanded minutes. There's no doubt Zach Edey has exceeded any expectation that anyone could have possibly put on him when he came to Purdue as the number, 429 rated recruit in the country. He is a preseason All Big Ten selection. I think he was unanimous there. What he does this season is going to be very interesting to watch. Purdue is going to play through him like crazy. One thing to watch is his turnovers. That really hurt Purdue in the loss to St. Peter's. That wasn't the only time where he was turnover prone last year. But how much can he improve on that? The ball is going to be in his hands a lot. Can he be a better passer out of the post? Can he be more decisive? Can he be stronger with the ball? Those are going to be very important things to monitor because Purdue has to be efficient on offense. It won't have the offensive efficiency numbers it did last year. It doesn't have that level of star power on offense. But if you can limit the turnovers, you really raise the floor on this season's team. Kind of complimenting Edey at the 4 spot is going to be Mason Gillis. And talk about rock solid. Someone who just is efficient, someone who does the dirty work. The definition of a role player, no doubt, but a very valuable one. 49% from the field, 41% from 3, 85% from the free throw line last year. That's awfully close to 50, 40, 90. That's really, really good. He is everything you could want from someone at the 4 position that's not a big-time scorer. One of the nice things about him, being a good 3-point shooter, and being an efficient 3-point shooter, is that you don't need to get him tons of volume. He's not going to be someone you're running a ton of stuff for. He's going to be someone who is open. Someone who, off of a cut gets open at the wing for a jump shot, for a 3-pointer. Someone who gets an offensive rebound putback. He's not someone you're running the offense through, but he's such a good piece to have. His experience should really be valuable this year. This will be his 3rd year as a consistent starter, I believe, right? I think that's right. Purdue will really rely on him quite a bit. He is a very, very solid player. But where I think a lot of the intrigue is in this front court is what you have coming off the bench in Caleb First and Trey Kaufman-Renn. And that's how, when I say coming off the bench, these are just my projections for this season. I know how Purdue started the secret scrimmage the other day. Those were the two starters in the front court, along with Smith, Lawyer, and Morton in the back court. So this is going to be interesting, though, because these two are so different from Zach Edey and Mason Gillis. Caleb First will play that 5 spot, but can really play 5 out. He can really play that stretch 5 who can knock down threes, who can defend pick and rolls like Purdue hasn't really had at center. Matt Harms could do it. Jawan Johnson certainly could do it. That's a very interesting piece. He's dynamic. He's bigger than anyone gives him credit for. Now, I don't know how great of a post scorer he is, but he's athletic at the 5. He moves really well. I wouldn't be shocked to see him shoot 35, 40%, maybe not 40%, but 35% from 3 this year. I'm really interested to see what he does because Trey Kaufman-Renn complements him very well. I think you can do a lot of fun stuff with those two. And I think one of the interesting things you can do is go high-low in a non-traditional sense. With Caleb First high, Trey Kaufman-Renn low. I think that's something that can be used to this team's advantage. And I think one of the more interesting things to look at is how you have two very different front court looks to deploy at different times when needed. Now, Zach Edey's your best player. You need him on the floor a lot. But when the matchup calls for it, you have a very different looking front court in First, in Kaufman-Renn, to see what they can do. I think that versatility is going to be a very big positive for this year's team. Purdue does, in the front court, have Will Berg, the 7'2 freshman from Sweden. He's going to redshirt this year. Matt Painter did say that on a podcast, but no surprise to anyone coming over from from Scandinavia. Certainly an adjustment period. He's going to redshirt. We will see what he looks like a year from now. For as certain as the front court is, there are a lot of questions about Purdue in the backcourt. A lot of turnover there. You know, gone are your 2 point guards from last year's team. Eric Hunter Jr., Isaiah Thompson, both transferred out. Gone is Jaden Ivey, Purdue's first lottery pick in some time. I think since Glenn Robinson, right? He's gone. Gone is your 3-point specialist, someone who was absolutely critical to what Purdue did on offense to draw defenders out. And Sasha Stefanovic, guy who, had he not gotten COVID back in his junior season, would have finished with 1,000 points at Purdue. So all you have back from the backcourt last year are Ethan Morton and Brandon Newman. Those are your 2 returning commodities here. Morton can be penciled into the starting lineup if for no other reason, because he is your best defender on the perimeter on this year's team, and I don't think it's all that close. You saw what he did last year in games like Texas, where he really slowed down Marcus Carr. I believe there was a Big Ten tournament game. My goodness, was it Penn State when he came in and slowed down Jalen Pickett? I can't remember who it was, but there was a game a few times last year where Ethan Morton came in and did a fantastic job on defense to alter the game. One question here is how well does his defense translate to being the guy? Ethan Morton's going to have the number 1 guard from the other team every single game this year. You know, when Purdue plays teams who have a dynamic guard, it's going to be on Ethan Morton to guard him because I don't know who else is going to. How well is that going to translate? You know, last year teams didn't prepare for their best player to be going up against Ethan Morton all that much. This year, it's all they really have to prepare for. How well does that translate? We saw at times that didn't go so well for Eric Hunter Jr., especially last season. He struggled at times with that last year. So how does that translate? That's going to be interesting to watch. Of course, scoring as well. Ethan Morton is not proven to be much of a dynamic scorer at this point. He did shoot very well from 3 last year. That was on very low volume. So you take it for what it's worth as you figure his volume will expand this year. But can he, he's got a big, tall frame. Can he get around guys? Can he, what all can he do? I think you can feel good about him as a 3-point shooter. Is there anything else to his game besides that? We'll find out. I know Purdue likes him as a passer. And of course, in Purdue's motion offense, you can be a good passer from anywhere. Just look at a guy like Dakota Mathias. Now, that's not the role that Ethan Morton will play, but his passing ability could be very valuable for Purdue this year. Brandon Newman, on the other hand, is going to be one of the more interesting storylines to follow with this team because he was out of the rotation for a while last year. He really struggled. He did not have a good sophomore year. One of the best moments of the season was when he finally got a shot against Penn State in the Big Ten tournament after sitting out for quite a while. I think he knocked down all 4 of his shots. That was kind of a flash in the pan. He did struggle the rest of the season after that, but it was a rough season for him. Now, every single person in the Purdue fan base is going to be rooting for him like crazy this year. You already see it on Twitter. You already see it on Instagram, on the message boards. Everyone is rooting for Brandon Newman to have a great year. You have to give him some credit. It would have been very easy for Brandon Newman to transfer after the way last season went. Now, I can't blame Purdue for not playing him at times last year. He was really struggling, and it's hard to play 10 guys. But Purdue's always kind of thought that he's better when he has a high number of minutes. When he's out there, able to get into the flow of the game. We'll see how valid that is, because whether he starts or not, whether it's him or Fletcher Lawyer at the 2 spot, they're both going to get plenty of minutes, I'd think. I'd be surprised if one guy really runs away and plays 30-plus minutes there. So he'll get plenty of minutes. How much has he developed? Obviously, he's a 3-point shooter. He didn't have a great shooting season last year. He has a nice stroke. There's a lot to like there. But can he score off the bounce? Can he handle the ball a little bit? That was a big rough area there, and something that prevented him from playing last year was that he doesn't handle the ball well. Has he improved there? Is he a better passer? Is he a better defender? Another area where he really struggled, both on and off ball defense. That's going to be a big area for him to take a jump. Going to be a fascinating storyline there. Purdue brings in 2 true freshmen to the backcourt, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, guys who I have seen play a lot of basketball. You've got Braden Smith, the 2022 Indiana Mr. Basketball out of Westfield. I loved him every time I saw him in high school. He plays with a motor that Purdue has not seen since probably since a Dakota Mathias. Since that group that hated losing got out of Purdue, Purdue hasn't had that level of a competitor in their backcourt or really on their team. Mason Gillis, probably the exception there. Braden Smith is that guy. He is going to be someone that a lot of the Big Ten doesn't like. He is confident. He is brash. He's in your face. Early reports out of him are incredible, though. Purdue hasn't had a real true point guard in some time, but he does fit the bill there. He's a really good passer. He's aggressive with it, and that'll get him at times early on this year. I have no doubt about that. But he can really do some good things with the ball. He handles the ball well. He's a good shooter, shoots from outside well. Now, he is smaller. There's no doubt about that, at about 6 foot flat. Getting into the lane, we'll see what the jump to the Big Ten is like there. There's going to be a learning curve here. Don't get ahead of yourselves here. He's going to start. He's going to be Purdue's point guard. He may lead Purdue in minutes, for all I know. I think him and Ethan Morton are probably your two guys there, just because Purdue doesn't really have another alternative point guard. But how quickly does he acclimate? We will see. But I think there is so much to like about Braden Smith. He is one of the pieces of this team I am most excited to watch. And Fletcher Lawyer's right there with him. Runner-up to Braden Smith and Mr. Basketball last year. Can absolutely shoot the lights out of the gym. Great three-point shooter, but he is a multi-level scorer. He's comfortable off the bounce in the mid-range game. Again, getting all the way to the rim, we'll see how that is in the Big Ten, especially right away. On defense, I think there could be a transition period for both of Purdue's true freshmen, but what true freshman doesn't have a bit of a transition in the Big Ten? That's a big adjustment from high school to college basketball when you're playing in a physical league like the Big Ten. I think you should be very excited for these two, though. They started in the secret scrimmage. Whether they will start, the season opener, we'll see. We'll see who starts on Wednesday against Truman State. I'll bring you updates from Mackey Arena on Twitter there. And then finally, the last true guard on this team, you've got David Jenkins Jr. What all can he bring? You look at his career, and it's been a roller coaster. He started off at South Dakota State and was very good. 16 points as a freshman, 19 points a game as a sophomore, 43%, 45% from the floor, has always shot well from three. Followed his coach, TJ Otzelberger, from South Dakota State to UNLV. Had a really nice year there. He did have to sit out a year during that transfer back in the ancient NCAA transfer rules of about 3 years ago. Did well at UNLV, though. 14 points a game. Otzelberger goes to Iowa State. Jenkins Jr. goes in the portal. Ends up at Utah, and I have no idea what happened there. I can't claim to follow Utah basketball particularly closely, but it didn't seem to go great. Just 8 points a game. Fell beneath 20 minutes per game. Didn't start much the second half of the year into conference play. No idea what happened there. Utah was not a good team, so internal dynamics, whatever it may be, no clue. We know he's a good three-point shooter. Getting to the rim off the bounce. He's a bigger, stronger guy, so I think it'll be interesting to see what he can do there. Mid-range, I don't know how well he handles the ball. I think that's a big question with him. Not that I'm saying he can't. I just don't know how much Purdue, I don't know how much you've seen it. And I don't know how much Purdue can rely on that. Ideally, you would like to have someone handle the ball to help Braden Smith. Ethan Morton can do it. I think if you make Fletcher Lawyer do it, he can. Can Jenkins? I don't know. Defensively, he is a little bit bigger and stronger. Now, he's not played at the Big Ten level. The Pac-12 has some decent teams, but it doesn't have the depth and physicality of the Big Ten. Going to be a lot of questions about him, but I think at the absolute worst, he's a nice bench piece for Purdue who chips in, can eat some minutes, and knock down a three here and there. The final piece here, Purdue's got two guys who really kind of fit that swingman three position spot. Brian Waddell, Camden Heide. Again, neither of them are really true backcourt or frontcourt pieces. A lot of questions for both. Waddell is coming off an ACL surgery, missed all of his redshirt season with that. Before he was hurt, the reports of his play were very impressive. How is he? How comfortable is he getting back into the flow of the game? I don't know. I can't really speak to that, but I think he's going to be interesting to monitor. There were some really, really good things coming out about his play. You hope that he can get healthy, get to 100%, and we can see what goes on there. With Camden Heide, he missed most of his senior season of high school with a foot injury. He is healthy now. He played against Cincinnati on Saturday. How up to speed is he? I don't know. I think we're going to find out a lot about him in that exhibition versus Truman State. I think he's the guy who's the will he or won't he redshirt candidate. And I think you'd like to have an answer there during the exhibition game. I'm going to lean that he does, but if he doesn't, I would be surprised. I'd be surprised if he doesn't redshirt, but prove me wrong, Camden. Not that redshirting's a bad thing. Purdue's used it for a long time now. It's been very productive for a lot of guys. So we'll see if that happens with Heide. I don't know, but this little spot here with Waddell and Heide, seeing if they get on the court much will be very interesting. One of the fun parts is always to look at the schedule. Man, I love scheduling. We had a great time talking about football schedules on the show last week. But when you look at this non-conference schedule, you have the PK85 tournament, and that is going to be a bear. At least it has the potential to be a bear if you keep winning. Outside of that, it's not the most strong non-conference schedule. I think that's okay. I don't know that this team needs to face a murderer's row schedule. The PK85, fantastic challenge, and I'm glad Purdue's playing in it. You open up with West Virginia, a program Purdue is very familiar with, a program Purdue has played quite a bit in recent memory. No, not really this group. Going back to kind of those transition years, I guess the late baby boilers and then into the transition years after that. But West Virginia, always a good challenge. You either get Gonzaga or Portland State. So if you want a resume opportunity, beat West Virginia so that you get Gonzaga instead of Portland State. And then from there, your third game will come against one of the following: Duke, Oregon State, Florida, or Xavier. I think with all of those, the only one you really look at and think is weak is Oregon State. They're terrible. But the other three, all formidable. I think you would expect Portland State and Oregon State to be the 2-0-2 teams playing each other. How difficult this tournament is really depends on if you win or lose versus West Virginia, because then it depends if you get Gonzaga or not. I think it's going to be interesting to see. You're going to learn a lot about this group, but I think you're going to learn a lot about them in the game before you go out to Portland against Marquette. That's a big one. You get them in the Gavitt games. It feels like that's the only team Purdue ever gets in the Gavitt games, but it's going to be a good challenge. We know what Shaka Smart has done against Purdue in the past. He's been very successful. I think it's good to have that game at Mackey Arena. It's a 8:30 p.m. tip-off, so the place should have plenty of energy. But looking at what Purdue is capable of in that game and how they handle some of the things that Marquette will present, I think that'll tell you a lot about how they handle PK85. And then you come home from Portland for the tournament just to fly down to Florida State for the annual Purdue versus Florida State matchup. Kidding, but only kinda. They're another one. They're long. They're going to pressure the ball. They're going to make Purdue do some good things to beat them, especially on the road. Not that Florida State is some, unreal basketball environment, but a road game's a road game sometimes. It's never easy. Outside of those games, it's not the most difficult non-conference slate. You have 5 bye games in there. You have a game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indy against Davidson. That doesn't move the needle at all. I think there are going to be some really rough attendance numbers from that game, but oh well. And I think the one thing here that is good to note, the Big Ten plugs 2 games into December now, into the heart of December, before Christmas break. Purdue gets Minnesota at Mackey Arena, and they go to Nebraska. Minnesota's not very good. They go to the team that I think is going to be the worst in the Big Ten. You start 2-0 in the Big Ten. I'm not saying that I think Purdue should expect to win the whole conference this year, but a 2-0 start gets you feeling good about yourself and builds up some confidence. I think as a whole, everything before the new year, pretty manageable. That stretch from Marquette to Florida State, pretty tough, but everything on the other sides of those, I think Purdue will be favored to win them all. You look at the conference schedule, and look, you can do this any year, but the Big Ten is hard to predict most years. It's even crazier this year. We'll go into the Big Ten a little bit more here, about 10 minutes or so at the end of the episode, but there's only so much to analyze. It's a grind. It's challenging. Every road game's tough, but you only get Illinois and Michigan once. You get Illinois at Mackey once, and you go to Chrysler Arena once. Think those are both positives. You get those 2 just once. You do only get Northwestern once. Purdue has not lost to them in forever. For a reason. They're not very good. I think you'd like to get them twice, ideally, but hard to go into too much detail there. A lot of big games, no doubt about it. Going to be a very fun Big Ten to follow, but a few questions and predictions here before jumping into the Big Ten. I've got 5 of each. Question number 1, how much more can Zach Edey do? Because that is going to be the question of how much Purdue can ride him. Is he the guy who can put the team on his shoulders and just take them to the top 4 or 5 of the Big Ten? I don't think it's unreasonable to ask, but that increased minute load, I think, is always something to ask. And how much has he improved? Ball security, efficiency at the foul line is big. He struggled there at times last season. A few things to watch with him, but how much more can he do? Is he a first-team All-Big Ten kind of guy? We will see. Number 2, those freshman guards. How quickly are they ready to acclimate? Is this something like, I got to be careful with what I say here, but like 2007, where Etuan Moore and Robbie Hummel were studs right away. Even something like Carson Edwards was ready right away, and I'm using some terrible examples. How about Chris Kramer? Chris Kramer and Keaton Grant, there you go. They were guys who were not as highly recruited or turned into All-Americans, but came in right away and were very, very good. Can Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer be those kind of guys for this team? Like Chris Kramer, like Keaton Grant, there are similarities in those guys to begin with, but can they do that? Are they ready to be 25 to 30-minute players right away, especially Braden Smith? That's going to be fascinating, but man, I cannot tell you enough how excited I am to watch those two grow. Number 3, what is reality for Brandon Newman? As a redshirt freshman, we saw some real flashes from him. He had that, what did he score? 28 points, 29 points in that game against Minnesota. He had some really good moments as a redshirt freshman. Last year was rough. Last year was bad. All along, I thought that Purdue did the right thing by not playing him as much. I know that wasn't always popular. He's a likable guy. But what is reality for him? I mean, is he someone who is capable of playing 20-plus minutes, being really good for this team? I think he is. I really do think he is, but I don't know. We'll see what that looks like early on, because he could be someone who, if he's good and can build on what he was capable of as a redshirt freshman, then man, that's a really nice player to add to this group. Number 4, that 4 position. You have Caleb First played there last year, but I think he's going to get most of his minutes at the 5 this year. I think you look at all 40 minutes at the 5 split between First and, of course, Zach Edey. But at the 4 position, with Mason Gillis and Trey Kaufman-Renn, what type of production do you get? Because you have 2 very different players there, both of whom are guys who can really help you a lot. I don't even know numbers. This team is so unproven, so new, that I don't even know what to expect. But what type of production does Purdue get there? And then number 5, can Purdue compete for a Big Ten championship? It sounds crazy to ask, given all Purdue lost, but we're about to get into the Big Ten, a little bit of a look at the Big Ten here, and it's open. There are a few teams that certainly look good, but if Purdue hits, if Braden Smith looks like a legit Big Ten point guard from day one, if Brandon Newman looks good, if Zach Edey is a star, why can't Purdue compete for a Big Ten championship? Why can't they be in the hunt going into the last few weeks of February? I don't know. Why not? All right, a few predictions here. I got 5 of them. The growth that Purdue shows from day 1 to the last day of the season is going to rival that of what happened a few years ago when Purdue had Carson Edwards, Ryan Klein, Matt Harms, Nogel Eastern, Grady Eifert, those guys, and they looked awful in the non-conference. They went 6-5, didn't beat a high major opponent, and then voila, they ended up a stone's throw away from the Final Four. I'm not saying Purdue's going to have that same level of ceiling, but I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of growth that Purdue undergoes this season. Number 2, Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer emerge as 2 of the Big Ten's best freshmen. I think they both start, is my guess. I think they are very, very good. I think they are ready. There will be growing pains, no doubt about it. But Purdue's in a position where they have no choice but to let those guys play through those growing pains. I think it helps them in the long run, but I think at the end of this season, there's going to be a lot of talk about those guys as key cogs for Purdue going into 23-24. Number 3, Purdue's defensive efficiency numbers. A little Ken Pom action here for you. Purdue's defensive efficiency, notably better than last year's. However, offensive efficiency, going to go down. It's going to drop off. I don't know what to tell you there, but what Purdue did last year was very impressive on the offensive end. Without Sasha Stefanovic, without Jaden Ivey, without Travion Williams as 3 pretty efficient scorers, I think those numbers are going to go down. Number 4, that combo of Caleb First and Trey Kaufman-Renn. Purdue fans are going to be really excited about that both during this season and after this season when they look at the future with those guys. I think they are going to be awesome. Now, by no means am I saying the production is going to be incredible. I think it'll be solid, but I just think seeing that combination and seeing the diverse skill sets that they bring, that's something Purdue hasn't had in a while. I think there's a lot to like there. And number 5, Purdue fans are going to have a great time this season. Purdue fans are going to enjoy it a lot. And I think most people at the end of the season will say that they enjoyed this season more than last. Purdue will crack the top 4. Yeah, crack the top 4 of the Big Ten They will get the double bye in the Big Ten tournament, which they've done all but once since 2015. They will extend that. They'll do it again. But Purdue will fall in the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament this year. So there you go. Those are my predictions. We will revisit those towards the end of the season to see how I did. A few thoughts on the Big Ten to close this one out. It's wide open. I've talked about that already here. Indiana's the favorite. Indiana should be the favorite. They bring back the most. I think there's some very real talent there. Towards the end of last season, you saw that Xavier Johnson, Trace Jackson-Davis pick and roll, 2-on-2, more NBA type of action there that looked good for them. They had some good things going there. Now, the questions with Indiana, there's plenty. I mean, they haven't finished in the top half of the Big Ten. Since Yogi Ferrell was there, maybe? Yeah, it's been a while. There's plenty to be cautious about, but I think if you look at the Big Ten objectively right now, I think it's hard to not put Indiana atop. Illinois and Michigan are both really interesting. Michigan gets back Hunter Dickinson, but loses a whole lot else. Again, Hunter Dickinson, one of the Big Ten's best players, but a lot of new faces around him. Illinois is almost entirely new. Their best returning player is probably either RJ Melendez or Coleman Hawkins, unless I'm forgetting someone obvious. They lose a whole heck of a lot, but hit the transfer portal hard, spent NIL money like it was their job, and got a couple of really nice pieces. Terrence Shannon Jr., Matthew Mayer, really nice players to bring in there. Got a nice true freshman in Sky Clark at point guard. Illinois should be pretty good. What to expect from Michigan State and Ohio State? I don't know. You don't want to count Izzo out. You never do. But I think they should have an all right team, even if the path to it doesn't look the most logical. I think Ohio State fans are very ready for Chris Holtmann to go do something. I can't say I know a ton about them, really. Losing Malachi Branham wasn't ideal. Losing E.J. Liddell doesn't help. But they got a nice class in. Bruce Thornton's a nice guard they brought in. Man, outside of this, though, I mean, you're looking at the Big Ten. Rutgers and Wisconsin, Iowa in there too. I think those are all kind of fringe NCAA tournament teams. First-year coach at Maryland with Kevin Willard. People are acting with Iowa like Chris Murray is guaranteed to make the jump that his brother did. I don't know about that. That's going to be something interesting to watch. Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern. I can't see any of them being good. Chris Collins, certainly facing some job pressure at Northwestern. Got that little dreaded vote of confidence from the AD after last season. If they're not in the tournament, I think they make a coaching change. Nebraska's going to stink. They gave Fred Hoiberg just a terrible contract. What is it with that school and bad coaching contracts? My goodness. And then Minnesota, I don't know. Ben Johnson's got a tough job there, but Jamison Battle's good, but past him, I don't know. All in all, it's a wide open Big Ten. I think this is going to be another year where no one runs away with it. Where it's a 14-6, maybe 15-5 wins it. I don't think anyone's going 16-4, 17-3. Going to be a fun year, guys. We will be here all year to talk about it. I think Purdue is in a good spot. They have Truman State on Wednesday night in an exhibition game. Get your BTN Plus subscription ready if you're not around Lafayette so that you can watch it. And if you don't, just follow me on Twitter at BoilersBeyond. I will tweet my thoughts, and next week we will talk about it on the show. We'll be back later this week to preview Purdue, Iowa in football. As I'm recording this, Purdue has already gone from a 7-point favorite to a 3.5-point favorite. Serious money coming in on Iowa early. Going to have plenty to talk about there after the bye week. That's all I've got for the Big Ten and Purdue basketball preview episode, though. Thank you, guys. It's going to be a fun basketball season. Subscribe so that you don't miss anything. And until later this week, take care and enjoy that Truman State game.